Hello everyone, good morning. My name is Varun. Welcome to part 5 on application demonstrating Spring Boot security with CRUD operations using Spring Boot Hibernate with JPA, MySQL and JSPs. In my previous video, part 4, I've shown how to build the code of service classes. So this is continuation of that part 4, wherein in this particular video I'll be showing how to build the code of controller, validation classes and the class extending web security configurer adapter. What do I mean by validations? My end application normally looks like this. My application, if I type any localhost colon port followed by forward slash, when I type forward slash, my application will be routed to login page, or if I type registration, it will open the registration. So before the user logs in, this application allows two pages. One is login and other is registration. What is the purpose of login? This login, if a user has a user ID password, that can be entered here, and once you press the login button, and if the user ID password is authenticated, then the page will allow the user to log into the main application. So assume currently I have one user in my database, which is Varun CPV. Okay, if I enter this user ID and enter the wrong password, what will happen? It will say your username password is invalid. So how is this message is being displayed? This is displayed by custom validation. I'll be defining a custom validation class wherein I'll be validating all these errors. What happens if the user is not there? For example, Arisha CPV, this user is not there or this user is not registered. What will happen when I press login? It will say your username and password is wrong. Okay, also say now I want to create or register the user ID Arisha CPV. Here, whenever a user is being registered, I want the password to be same. What will happen if I give a wrong password? Here I gave one password, here I am giving another password. What will happen? It will say error page, because you can see no message found under, it is throwing an error page. So all these validations I am validating in the validation class. So let's proceed. First, in this demo, I will first build the validation class, then the controller, and at last the class extending the web security configure adapter. All right. So if you go to for the validation class, before building the validation class, I need to add a properties file in my resources folder. In the source main resources, right click, new, other, general, file. Next, here give the name as validation.properties. Okay, click finish. Okay, here I need to basically enter few of the key value pair, which I've already copied here. I'll just copy paste. So these are the values which I'll be entering. If it is empty, this field is required. If the username size is not between 6 and 32, I'll prompt a message saying please use between 6 and 32. If the user already exists, I'll prompt a message someone already has that username. With the password, if less than 8 characters, I'll prompt him to enter try with at least 8 characters. If the password doesn't match, then these are the messages I'll prompt in the application. So please save it. Okay. The next step we do is define a validation class called user validator. So for this, let me define a class new class. A package name I'll give as validator. Name I'll provide as user validator. Click finish. Okay, the first thing I'll do is I'll register this class as component. What is component? Basically, component, whenever class is annotated with a component annotation, then it is auto detected by the Spring container. We don't have to define a bean explicitly. A Spring container automatically detects the class, automatically detects this class as a bean at the runtime. So this is the advantage of component. Let me import the necessary dependencies. Right click, quick fix, import the component. As I said, this class is a custom validation class. So this should implement validator. What is quick fix? It should be Spring Framework validation. Okay. So whenever we implement this validator, it should implement this class, which is supports and validate. Right. Before I write the code for the support, I'll define a variable private user service. Okay, this one I'll auto wire it. Okay, this user service is the one which I've defined in my previous demo. Import the necessary dependencies of auto wired. Advantage of auto wired is we don't have to create the getter and setters explicitly. All right, next I'll just remove this override method. In this support class, I'll pass a class. Okay, I'll just give this variable, then return user dot class dot dot equals. I'll pass this. Okay, so we are basically passing in the support class we are referencing the user with a class. Okay, next validate. Let me remove this validate here. I'll say object O, and then I'll say this errors. Okay, next user equals user. Okay, I'll typecast it to user. Then I will make use of validation utils dot reject if empty. Okay, errors here. I'll pass username also not empty. So what it will do is, if this field is empty, it will throw an error and pass the message not empty. Next, if user dot get username dot length less than 6 or greater than 32, then I'll say errors dot reject value. Here I'll pass username, then this is the property in my validation dot properties, which is this one, size dot username. So I'll just copy this and paste it here. Okay, similarly I'll define if user service dot find by username user dot get username not equals null. Okay, then I'll say errors dot reject value. So this will basically check the duplicate value. If the user is already existing in the database, it will return the error message. This should be again from the validation dot properties, which is duplicate dot user form dot username. Okay, again I'll define validation utils dot reject if empty or white space. Sorry, this should be reject if empty or white space. Okay, the same thing I'll copy, shift and control C, shift and control V. Here instead of user name I'll give password. Okay, then again I'll copy this, control C. Here instead of user dot get name I'll say dot get password dot length less than 8 or dot get password length greater than 12. Okay, then I'll say password, the validation properties, I'll use this one. Okay, last, if not user dot get password confirm dot equals, here I'll pass user dot get password, then I'll say error dot reject value password confirm, then I'll pass the validation different dot user dot password confirm. Okay, so with this I've defined my validation, custom validation file, or the class, custom validation class. Next, how this custom validation is used in controller, I will show you shortly. So next, I go to my controller class in the student enrollment controller. As I shown you, initially my application allows two pages: registration. So if I give the user ID, password, and confirm the password and press the submit button, it will take me to the application. Or if I don't give registration, it will take me to the login page. So first let me define the registration. Okay, before I define the registration, let me define private user service, import the service class, auto wire it. Okay, next also I'll define variable private security service. I'll say security service. I'll auto wire it. I'll import the security class. Okay, next I'll define the get method of registration. So what I'll do is I'll just copy this, I'll paste here. So here I'll give registration. Okay, then I'll define a method called public string registration, to which I'll pass model object. Okay, import the necessary dependency for model. Okay, next add model dot add attribute, to which I pass user form, comma, new user, and okay, this is the model class, so I'll just need to import this model class. Okay, then I'll return registration. Okay, so this will take me to the registration.jsp. What is registration.jsp, how it is defined, I'll show in my, for now, this is how my registration.jsp looks like. It has a username, password and confirm password. What happens when I press this submit button? So it's a post request. So what I'll do is the same registration, I'll add a post. This will be post. Okay, then I define public string registration. Okay, here I'll define @model attribute, to which I'll pass user form, okay, space user form, comma, I'll define binding result binding result, comma, model, and so this is how my method definition looks like. Then here first I'll make use of user validator dot validate. Okay, I forgot to add the variable private user validator I'll auto wire it. Okay, import this dependency, then make use of this object or the variable, then say validate. Here I'll pass user form, then the binding result. Okay, this will validate if there are any errors in my, say if I don't press anything, it will validate this. So it will validate this particular operation. Okay, if binding result dot as errors, then return registration, which is this one. Okay, else I'll make use of user service dot, I'll save the credentials of user form. Okay, I'll basically saving the user ID password, then I'll make use of security service dot auto login, which I've defined in my, then I'll say user form dot get username and user form dot get sorry user form dot get password confirm. Okay, the next I'll say return redirect colon / view students. So it will basically execute this particular method. So or this particular method. However, when I type, if I show this, say I'll give a user ID, I'll give the password. Okay, submit. So it will take to the it will take me to the view students. So however, when I press submit, uh, a / will go. So here what I have to do is I have to make this as an array, which is / so basically whenever it's forwarded from registration, it will come as / and this method will be executed. So that's what is happening. Okay, so this my registration is done. Okay, now let me save this one. Next, let me go to the login form. Say I log out here. Let me go to the login form. This login form, whenever I click URL / login is encountered, so this is how the page looks like. So for this I have to write a method or URL which accepts this. So again this is a get. So let me just copy this. Instead of registration, I'll say login. Okay, then I'll define public string login model comma string error comma string logout. Okay, here I'll define if error not equals null. Okay, I'll say model dot add attribute. I'll say error, then for your username and password is invalid. Okay, next I'll define if logout not equals null. I'll say again model dot add attribute. Here I'll say you have been logged out successfully. Okay, next I'll define return login. Okay, save it. So with this, my controller is done. So with this, my controller is done. Now, how exactly whenever I enter any URL, how only the login page is getting displayed? If I say without logging in, if I directly type view students, so the application is taking me to the login page. How this control is happening? This magic happens in a class where we extend the web security configure adapter. Now let me define that web security configure adapter. In the main package, okay, here define a class called web security config. Okay, click finish. Okay, now this class I'll annotate it as configuration and at the rate enable web security. So the moment this annotation is encountered, Spring Boot will automatically execute or implement this class. Let me just import the necessary dependencies. Okay, so this class extends web security configurer adapter. Okay, basically I have to define two methods here, configure and configure global. Before doing that, let me private user detail service user detail service. Okay, I'll import this one, which is my user detail service. Okay, next I'll auto wire this at the rate auto wired. Okay, next I'll make use of at the rate being public bcrypt password encoder equals to bcrypt password encoder. Okay, this we will be using for encoding the password. I'll say return new Okay, Control S. Next, I'll define a method called protected void configure, to which I'll say http security http throws exception. Okay, let me import the http security. Okay, then we override this method. Okay, then I'll say http dot authorize request dot and matches, to which here I'll pass /resources /star colon /registration and dot permit all. So this method basically allows two URLs. One is registration or any other URL. Then what it will do is it will check any request dot authenticated dot and dot form login dot login page login. If this is authenticated, it will say permit all and logout dot permit all. So basically what it does is any URL except registration, it will take to the registration page, otherwise it will take to the login page. So this is where we have this control. If if I enter any URL, okay, it will take me to the login page. Okay, if it is registration, it will take me to the registration. So these two URLs are configured here. Okay, then if this page is authenticated, then only it will take me to the successive request. That's where this is where we are authenticating this particular method. So this is where all the magic is happening. Next, there's one more method which I'll define as public void configure global, to which I pass authentication manager builder AUTH and throws exception. Okay, let me import this quick fix. Okay, this one AU dot user detail service, to which I'll pass user detail service dot, okay, what's happening? I think user detail service dot password encoder, to which I pass this method. Okay, so with this, my entire code starting from model to services to controller to the web security config, which extends the web security configure adapter, where we use the annotation enable web security, and this is the method which will allow the registration and the login page in the initial request. So next, in my next demo, I will build the JSP pages and do a I'll run the end-to-end application. That's it from my end for this demo. Thank you.